Aloha! Welcome to our interview tonight with Shannon Matson, candidate for County Council District 5, primarily covering Upper Puna. Conducting our interviews tonight are Antu Harvey and James Akau. Before we get started, I'd like to offer a little information about HULI PAC. We are a group of grassroots community advocates volunteering our time to HULI PAC. Many of us have witnessed during oral testimonies the problem of being the minority voice, observing seated representatives voting against the āina or the majority of testifiers. The majority rule currently allows the continuation of colonial structures, corporate rule, and methods over Ike Hawaii for āina and its people to thrive. We must collectively understand the individual power we carry as Hawaii residents by getting involved. Who's starting our interview today? Is it Antu or James? I believe it's James. Go ahead.
Mahalo, Shannon, for being here today. I would like to start with asking, what has inspired you to run for office at this time? Please describe your core values. Which one is most important to you, and how would you apply those values to Hawaii Island's future?
Mahalo nui. Thank you so much, James. And it's so great to be here with all of you HULI PAC folks. And thank you for doing this. I think that this is a super important part of our voting process is informing our electorate, educating people about the candidates and their values. So I feel super honored to be able to go first. And let me do my best to answer your question as concisely as possible. My values are rooted in community, hard work, and integrity, which I feel like align very nicely with HULI PAC's values. I was looking through your list and you have them all in Hawaiian, which I love. Olelo Hawaii. This is Olelo. We just ended Olelo Hawaii month, but my keiki go to Navahi o Kalani o Pu'u. And so we're trying to incorporate Olelo Hawaii in everything we do in our values and our conversations around the dinner table and however we can in everything that we do. So obviously if I had to choose just one, it would be ohana first and foremost. As a mother, as somebody who values community, I look at my community as an extension of my ohana, and that's something that is rooted in everything that I do and everything that I am. Going back to integrity, I feel like if I can't trust that what I'm saying is true, then how can I teach my children to trust me, to believe in me, and to believe in themselves? So for me, everything that I do, I always go back to that word. I love that word, integrity. And I love that that's part of HULI PAC's name and mission. So that's always going to be the way I carry myself in community. That's part of why I'm running is for our community, for my ohana, for all of our ohana, for the next generation, for the current generation, and for our ancestors to uphold the values that we all. I feel like we all value similar things in choosing to live here in Hawaii and call this place our home. Did I cover all of that? Did I miss a part of the question?
That
Sorry.
was
James?
that was good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so
Yes.
much.
Okay. Thank you. Antu?
Yes, Shannon. So, what do you see as the most pressing topic facing your district, District 5 in Puna? And
We have,
what will you do to address the issue?
thank you, Antu. We have so many issues in Upper Puna. And let me just say that they're connected to a lot of the issues that we see island-wide. I was born in Honoka'a. I grew up in Kona. I now live in Hawaiian Acres, which is the Upper Puna area. I work in Hilo. I went to UH Hilo, so I've spent a lot of time in every district on our island. My father lived in Ocean View. One of my first boyfriends lived in Ocean View, so I spent quite a bit of time down in that part of the island as well. So I've really, at this point in my life, I've lived on this entire island, and I see that we have a lot of similar issues in many of our districts. And I would say The biggest issue that I'm hearing from community, because again, that's why I'm running, is, listening to community and seeing what issues are affecting them on a daily basis, are really tied into public safety and infrastructure. So we have a number of large substandard subdivisions that really never should have been created in Puna in the first place. I don't like using the word illegal, but I feel like a lot of the way they were created was illegal, the way that they're still functioning is illegal. And yet still a lot of people choose to live in them. I'm living in one right now that has almost 75 miles of unpaved roads. And it's a constant battle between, wanting to preserve this keep country kind of mentality and enjoying kind of living off the grid and living in an area that might be a little less accessible to people, and then still wanting to have access to emergency services. A lot of folks live in these areas because that's all they can afford. In the Puna area, we do have a lot of income inequality issues. We have a lot of poverty issues. We have an aging population as well. So we've got a lot of Kapuna that, may have chose to live off the grid and live in this more rural lifestyle back when they were younger and had, big plans and big vision. And now they're at a point in their life where they maybe need more access to healthcare. They need easier access to get to town and do their grocery shopping. And the commute is challenging with all the traffic. And we've got a lot of issues here that are compounded by our poor roads and then our lack of electricity, water, basic services. And then that all ties into public safety. So it's not really one thing. It's more of a combination of all of those things that have created these basically just a wealth inequality and a struggle. And, people say like it's a hashtag, right? The hashtag, the struggle is real, but out in Puna, this struggle is very real to balance, living in such a beautiful place that has so many possibilities with, with all of our agricultural opportunities out here, but also so many challenges. So it's figuring out how to balance that. And I think you asked about solutions, but I might have been out of time on this question. So maybe I can tie that into the next question.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead with your next question.
Shannon, do you think the current council is effective? If yes, why? If not, what needs improvement? What specifically would you do? And how would you accomplish your goal?
Okay, that's a great question too. And I have a very fine line to walk because I'm currently working for Council Member Jen Kagiwara. She's the Hilo council person. So I've seen council from the inside. I worked prior, so I'm a legislative assistant, which means I'm helping create the laws, writing resolutions and bills, and helping local community members, local nonprofits get access to some of the contingency relief funds, which is the funds that each council member has to determine various support for activities within their district. So I am experiencing council work on a daily basis, and I'm seeing the inner workings of how council works and doesn't work. So I'd like to say in lots of ways, it works well in that we have a really wonderful group of people that I get to work with on a daily basis. And I do enjoy my job and I do enjoy public policy and I love hearing from constituents and trying to solve their problems. Some of the biggest challenges in my job is feeling frustrated by a lot of the silos that we're in within the county government and really seeing solutions and wanting to push for those solutions. But of course, in my current role, my job is to serve the council member that I'm working for and the constituents within Hilo. And I would really love to be helping our Puna council, our Puna constituency, and I would really love to be able to bridge some of those gaps that I see across departments. And one of my personal missions is to create more public safety around animal control. And that's a really good example of a silo that's been created between animal control as its own department and HPD. who has to enforce a lot of the laws. And there's some laws that animal control officers can enforce, but a lot of the citations do come to HPD. And then there's a whole nother layer to that, that when someone is in violation of, either animal cruelty or dangerous dog issues, then the prosecuting attorney's office also gets involved. So the constituent potentially gets bounced around between 3 different entities. And the reason why I can speak about this with so much knowledge is because my father was killed in 2023 in Ocean View by dogs. And the dog owners still have not faced any sort of accountability. And through that, I found out that really our county laws were not strong enough. And the way that they were currently written, the dog owners would only face a petty misdemeanor charge. And so I worked to change the state law because the state law preempted the county law. It wouldn't allow the county to charge more serious charges. In our case, we felt it should have been a felony because my father was killed and these dogs had attacked somebody prior and the dog owners had not done anything. And so we worked to pass the state law, which I was able to do in just a couple of months, really from the moment we began. It was the start of session. We normally, when people pass a state bill of that magnitude, they've worked on it for years. I was told by people working on DUI legislation where they had lost loved ones as well, that usually it takes between 5 and 10 years to pass a new law. And we got the law passed in 6 months. So we were able to change the state law, but unfortunately it's a really bittersweet victory in that the only way we'll know if it works is if somebody faces a similar tragedy and we're able to pursue justice for them at that level. So, still seeing on a daily basis, we get calls from people living in the district that are experiencing issues with dog attacks, and they're getting passed between animal control and HPD. And there are good people working in both of those places that want to help them, but because of the way the system is set up, they're kind of meeting this wall and they're getting passed back and forth and they're not getting their problem addressed. And I see that happening in all parts of county, where, people come to the council member with a question or concern, and rather than getting an answer, they get sent to one entity or another. And the departments don't always communicate the best way that they could. So that's something I'm really hoping to change. And I think our current council members, they are aware of this issue. They are trying to find solutions. But I have a number of solutions, and I have the energy and the hard work and the capacity to look at this and say, as a constituent, as someone who's been through this, I have the empathy to understand the situation. And then I also have the desire to see this be done better. And I'm going to keep pushing for it because it's something that I care about so strongly. And I want my kids to feel safe to ride their bikes to our neighbor's house and not be attacked by a loose dog. And then if they were to be attacked by a loose dog, know that there's going to be an outcome and a consequence that will be in line with the incident that occurred.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you very much. This is in the affordable housing category. What are some of the complexities with regard to making housing more affordable? And what are some of the solutions you believe are viable?
So that's a big one. We need affordable housing. It's a large issue that's been facing our island for a while. And we're seeing so many people moving, especially to Puna, because as I said earlier, it's one of the only places on the island that a lot of people can afford. And we have so many issues with our infrastructure out here. It's really not viable to continue to build at the level that we're building in Puna without increasing all of our infrastructure access. So we're talking wastewater systems, we're talking roads, we're talking electrical hookups. All of these things are really expensive. Access to public services, that's not something you can build overnight, and it takes a lot of money and a lot of foresight and planning. We have the Puna CDP. We're working on our new general plan right now at the county. Those are tools that could be used and structures that have already been created. The Puna CDP is something that is really being underutilized as far as, what we could be accomplishing that's already been thought out and pushed forward by community members. So I'm really hoping to see that get used more and for us to actually move forward with our action plan. We do have a solid group of people serving on that commission right now. I think a few of them are terming out soon, but it would be great to really get people, actualizing the things that we've already spent time and energy having meetings about and discussing where we want to see things go. As far as housing in the Puna area, I would love to see more thoughtful development happening in our district, but I really think a lot of it needs to be infill in the Hilo area, and that's something that we've seen a lot of support for. There are some affordable housing units that housing developments that are moving forward right now or that are in the process of moving forward. And in those areas, they can tie into wastewater systems that already exist. We have a huge issue with the Hilo wastewater plant, and it's something that we're putting more money to. We're about to go into budget season here at the council, and there's going to be a lot of discussion about where we are with those projects. But I believe it's something in the billions. We're looking at over $1 billion project to upgrade all of our wastewater systems for this island. So let's build in those areas where we can tie into that first, rather than continuing to expand in Puna without being able to thoughtfully tie into those wastewater systems. There are a lot of really innovative alternatives. We have a composting toilet on our property actually that works really well, and it's just basically a giant vat that you utilize, and when you're done you seal it off, and we put that away for a year, and we have the space and the ability to do that and then use that humanure is what we call it on our fruit trees. That's not something that everybody has access to, but there are a lot of alternative systems, and that would be something that we'd have to push the state to look towards, because we have this mandate for people to convert their cesspools, and that's just not happening right now. We don't have the funding for it. It's really challenging. So I would like to see really smart growth happening in Puna, but more than anything else, we need to be focusing on that infill. And there are a bunch of code changes that are coming. Councilmember Poleka Inaba and Ashley Kirkowitz are both going to be introducing we were in part of the working group, but we don't know the final contents of it until it gets introduced at council because of sunshine law. But it was chapter 11. So that's the entire housing code. It's being completely reworked. There's going to be a lot of really thoughtful amendments coming soon to council, and there's going to be a big discussion at council on that bill. So look for that coming soon, and be prepared to give testimony and check in and see what parts of it make sense to you and where you think we could do better.
Okay, next question.
In the affordable, along those lines, in terms of affordable housing and housing in general, houselessness remains a problem statewide, including on Hawai'i Island. What solutions can you suggest to start tackling this crisis?
So I knew this one was coming. I mean, I didn't know any of the questions ahead of time, but in the Hilo district, working in the Hilo office, I'm getting this question all the time because of our downtown unsheltered folks that I have been accustomed to interacting with for years. I used to own Hot Yoga Hilo, which was a downtown Hilo business. And I'd call them my homies. They would sleep right outside my doorway. I'd get to greet them every morning. I'd see them when I left at night, because a lot of times our late classes, we'd close up the studio space around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and they're already settling in for the evening. I had a shower space there that I would let them access pretty regularly if they wanted to shower. They were people I would sit down with on the sidewalk and eat a pizza after work and, talk story with. So these are people that I know. These are people that I care about, and they are people that we get the most complaints about from downtown business owners in Hilo. And there's no easy solution. Right now, the county struggles between, kicking them out of our parks, where they're sleeping and finding shelter and, existing. And then they move into the downtown business area. And then the downtown businesses complain and they move them. The county comes in and does an enforcement action and moves them off the sidewalk and they go back to the parks. And so this goes back and forth, and becomes this never ending cycle. And we're not getting them the help that they need. In our Puna district, our homeless are hidden. So we have, I think, the same issue, if not a larger issue. I just went with the Hope Services and Bridging the Gap folks to do a homeless point in time count. The results haven't come out from that count yet. We should have those numbers in May. But I think the problem is the same, if not worse, than we've seen in prior years. And in the Puna area, people are living basically in tents, in cars, on large pieces of property where we can't see them and we can't get them access to the services they need. So it's a much bigger problem than many of us even realize, even though we have these most visible homeless in downtown Hilo. And it's a problem that has many solutions, and most of them start with getting them housed. And ultimately then getting them connected to services, because it's really hard to connect people to services, whether that's mental health, drug counseling services, job connections. You can't get that until you have stability and you have housing. So the HULI system at the state level is something that can work, housing people within community and similar groups of folks who can be the support system for each other. But it is such a deep issue and a long standing issue that it's so hard to answer that question fully in just a couple of minutes. But it's something that I care deeply about, that I've been working on for almost 2 decades now in various ways. And I look forward to continue to work towards a solution.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
I messed up the coding. James, do you want to take this one or would you like me to? It's on Native Hawaiian rights.
Sure, I'll follow up with another
Great, thank you.
question.
Great.
The Army will lose its lease to 23,000 acres of state land at Pohakuloa in 2029. Many residents are opposed to the Army renewing its lease, citing concerns about the military's history of land mismanagement and a lack of transparency. What outcome would you like to see in 2029?
I'd like to see an outcome where Native Hawaiian people, have the self-determination to describe what they would like to see and to have that be the outcome. As someone who was born and raised here, I've driven across Saddle Road more times than I can count. I remember when it was just a curvy little bumpy thing where you'd have to pull off to one side to let other cars go by. I grew up with Pohakuloa there, hearing the bombs, seeing the fallout, and experiencing that as that's what that was, that's what that's always been. But we know that that's not true. We know that it was something before that, and we know how sacred it was, and is to our Native Hawaiian folks, and to people like me who might not be Native Hawaiian by blood, but carry a sacredness in this land everywhere I go. I see the value that our land has is as the āina feeds us, the āina sustains us. And so to be bombing and desecrating it in this way, it's really hard. It's hard to explain to my children, when they ask me, when we drive across to do our Costco run, we'll go over to Kona and they'll ask questions about it, and I try my best to answer it, and the answers never feel like enough. They never feel like I'm getting to the heart of the issue, which is really, I don't support war. I understand the reasons that we say that we need this protection. We say that we need to support our military in various ways, and then we don't support our veterans when they come home from fighting wars on foreign soils. So it's really a struggle for me to justify any of it. And really, I don't feel like it's my place. I feel like I want to support and uplift Native Hawaiian voices that have been doing this work for generations, to try to get their land back and to try to, create a world in which they want to live and raise their children. So I would love for them to lead the way, and I would love to support them in that vision. I've been to many protests over the years, led by a neighbor right down the road, Jim Albertini. He's been holding a vigil for peace every Friday for, gosh, I think it's 20 years now. And he's there every Friday in downtown Hilo on Waianui. And he is such a beautiful example of somebody who is just going to continue to show up for what he believes in. And, I'm going to continue to support the people like that are already doing that work, and strongly believe in a future where Pohakuloa gets returned to Native Hawaiian people, and they get to determine what that looks like, and hopefully cleaned up.
Thank you. Next question.
Next one is on land use and infrastructure. Do you support developing residential or commercial buildings on ag zone lands by the county that also have land use designation of agriculture at the state level?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. You're saying the county would be developing
So we have a
on ag land?
two-layered designation. The state has, like, I think 5 designation areas,
Yeah.
the categories. And so looking at the map, the county is kind of divided up by that. But then overlaying this, the county has zoning, and some of it's zoned as various ag categories. There has been development on those areas, and it's really accelerating over on our side of the island, at least. But I'm curious about, so we've got these things in this scenario that it's ag, designated as ag, both at the state and at the county, but the county's allowing development on it based on the current code about being able to do stuff on it.
So when you say, so I understand the different designations, but what your question was saying is the county developing it, but you're still saying private entities are developing
Yeah.
it. Private
I'm sorry.
entities are, the county's not developing it for these other uses. It's somebody's coming and applying for a special use permit, and then they're being granted the special use permit. Is that the situation you're talking about?
Yeah, or just under it, because currently we've got, I think they're filling in some of the pukas, but currently that you can put accessory, structures on ag land. Yep. You can put one dwelling, you can put farm worker dwellings on things that are only like now, and they're allowing subdivisions, from actual ag land size into like 1 acre stuff. And so it's really cannibalizing our ag lands. And I'm just curious about
so I think county recently passed, I would say within the last couple of years, the accessory dwelling allowance, to allow multiple accessory dwellings to be constructed on properties that already had a house. I guess I would need to know a little bit more specifically about, what are these developments? What are they being used for? If they're not in alignment with agriculture at all, and, the community is saying this doesn't make sense here, then that doesn't make sense to me. So, I mean, there's issues in Puna specifically that I'm thinking of where folks are building, large, they're multi-level homes that are then being rented out. So it's on ag land, and then now we've got 2 dwellings, and then there's like 2 different duplexes or complexes. So you've gone from like a single family resident that you're assuming is going to just be single family home next to you, and then now suddenly there's maybe 4 different rentals that could have up to, let's say, 5 different people living in each of those. So now suddenly you've got 20 people on a property where you were maybe only expecting to have like 5 neighbors next to you. And, that obviously is something the community is concerned about. And there have been some cases where my understanding is the planning department has said, that was within their usage, that they were able to use to do that, and that they haven't broken any laws. I would have to look at those specific examples and see a little bit more about, what way they're going around that law. I believe our ag lands really should be agriculture. At the same time, we're taxed at highest and best use by real property tax. I'm living in Hawaiian Acres where we all have 3-acre lots. I would love to be growing 3 acres worth of food, but our family can't possibly grow 3 acres worth of food ourselves. That's a big undertaking, while still paying our bills and, getting the kids to school on time. So it's finding that balance of how can we use our property to feed ourselves, to provide for ourselves, and, how can we allow our neighbors the freedom to do that as well, and then keep our ag lands while at the same time providing other things that our community wants and needs. So there's a lot of different things within the zoning code that I would like to see changed, that I've kind of dug into a little bit, but all of those things would have to come with community support. So those are all conversations that, need to be had in community. I don't think anything should get approved or denied without proper input from community and support, especially if we're talking about changing zoning. And, that's what the Windward Planning Commission and the Leeward Planning Commission are tasked with. And a lot of times things don't even come before council that, maybe council members should have an opportunity to weigh in on. So those are all things that we kind of need to look at as far as, is this really upholding the original plan for that land? Is it being used the way it was zoned for? And then we're also, like I said earlier, evaluating the general plan. And so having a chance to see, are these zoning uses in line with the general plan? And I think I'm over my time on that one. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hey, James, next question.
How do you see our economy moving away from a reliance on the tourism industry? What industries within our county do you feel we need to further support and or develop to move towards a circular, more diverse economy, and how?
So I think ag, like we were just talking about, would be a great one. I definitely think that if tourism is going to keep happening at the volume it's happening at, it needs to be responsible tourism. We need to shift how we interact with tourists and the tourist economy and have it be less extractive. It's got to be something that feels good to the people who live here, and that it's something that we're excited about. And, the Pono Pledge is a great start, getting visitors who come that are educated and informed and want to participate with our culture and give back in a positive way with our environment. Those are the kind of tourists we need to seek out. In the meantime, we always need to diversify because, as we've seen with COVID, as we've seen with, right now, today, I've got a red glow coming across my yard. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the sun was bright red a little while ago from the ash we're in episode 43. I'm not sure when people might watch this, it might not be happening currently, but like clockwork right now, about every 2 weeks, we're having these huge lava episodes happen nearby. And for the most part, it's been exciting and something that stimulates our economy, and, people go up and get to check it out. But then when it becomes too big of an issue, we have ashfall. Most of us are on catchment. We've got to disconnect our catchment. We're dealing with water issues. We've got tephra scratching up our cars. It's a serious issue that, again, we're living in a very exciting but volatile climate where we don't know what might happen next, whether it's a natural disaster or a pandemic. Definitely relying on tourism, putting all our eggs in one proverbial basket is not sustainable. So part of my campaign is I'm giving away these seeds. My friend Mikey, it's the Hawai'i Island Seed Company. He gave me some local seeds, and then I've got a lot of other seeds that another friend, Gary, gave me. And this is our future, is planting as much as we can, growing as much as we can. A lot of these are native seeds. I'm super stoked to be giving some of these away to community. And, as a way to connect with people, as just a kind of an icebreaker to talk story about what are you growing in your yard. I feel like that should be our way of greeting each other rather than like, how are you? It's what are you planting today? What are you harvesting today? What are you feeding your family with? And that's a big part of my platform is what can we do in our Puniverse to support each other and ourselves. And a lot of it is, I think, growing things ourselves, looking for alternatives to driving to town every day and sitting in that traffic, whether that's remote work that we can do, can increase our technology infrastructure. I'm so glad that my internet connection is held out for the majority of this interview, but it's something that we struggle with in Puna is connectivity. So road connectivity and internet Wi-Fi connectivity. So, getting ourselves connected to each other in different ways and finding innovative alternatives. I'm also working on building a community kitchen, a certified kitchen where we can process our food. So all of us who are growing things on our properties, we can create value-added products. You see all across Puna right now, all these farm stands popping up, little bake stands, where people are getting into the entrepreneurial world at whatever level they can and creating food for themselves, food for their neighbors, and opportunities to share and connect. And I love it, and I want to support it and figure out ways we can do it even better.
James, do you want to take the next one? Because it's also
Sure. Yeah. So, relating to agriculture and farming, farmers are negatively impacted by the number of Hawaii branded products on the shelves that are not locally grown or are blended with imports. Would you support stricter labeling laws and enforcement for important agricultural crops such as coffee, tropical fruit, and macadamia nuts?
Yes. I think I can just say yes on that. But I just testified on the state level actually for Ola Brew, which full disclosure, I am actually a investor in their company. Very, very small kind things, but I liked what I saw them doing. They are creating a kole hau, and they are trying to get a labeling law passed at the state level to protect their brand and protect the culture and the history of ʻōkole hau. And they're not saying nobody else can make ʻōkole hau. They're saying it's got to be rooted in Hawaiian culture, and you've got to be using you've got to be using tea leaf. You can't just put a blend of spirits together and call it ʻōkole hau. And they're getting some pushback from, I saw a bunch of testimony from Great Britain, and I guess they're doing they've got some brands across two oceans that are doing their own thing and have been doing their own thing for a while, and they're calling it ʻōkole hau. And I think from my understanding of Olelo Hawaii, it's like, yes, we want to spread the language around the world, but we also really want to be sure that the culture is being upheld. And when you're using that language, when you're choosing to use Native Hawaiian and sell something and make a profit, are you upholding the highest value? And are you doing it with integrity? And the fact that they reached out and kind of said, no, we don't agree with this branding, to protect this name and make sure that it's using tea leaf and that's what it is, which is what Ola Brew has, been educating people on. This is where it's coming from. That's problematic. So yeah, absolutely. It's been a struggle with the Kona coffee farmers, the MacNut farmers for years. So if we're making it here, if we're using Hawaiian products, I really think it has to be a higher percentage than just, 1%, 5%, whatever it is people are currently getting away with. So I'm in favor of stronger laws on that regard.
Thank you.
okay. The next one's underwater and waste. New data suggests that Hawai'i Island landfill will be filled in the next 20 years. We have also seen a number of sewage leakages that affect our local coast.
Yep.
What are some of the solutions you have in mind for waste diversion and improved waste management on our island?
Well, we talked about some of them earlier. There are a lot of alternatives. There's these individualized wastewater systems, and there's all sorts of different smaller options that are now available that used to be really cost prohibitive. So, finding more innovative ways to deal with our waste, especially in some of the areas like what I'm describing, I live in 3 acre lots. There's 4,000 lots. We've all got some form of a hole in the ground is what we're using, really. It's all eventually seeping into the water table, into the ocean. And that is something that we definitely need to do better. And sorry, I just got totally sidetracked for a moment, but it's something that there's a mandate coming from the state, and it's an unfunded mandate. And I am terrified to take my children to the ocean to go swimming anywhere in Keaukaha after a heavy rain, because we know that the water is dirty. We know how dirty it is. Anytime they test the water, they come back with the placards that are like, don't go swimming, water alert, bacteria alert, do not go swimming right now. And we've seen what it's done to Puako. I mean, we know this is an issue island-wide, statewide, and we need action. We need rapid action, but it costs money, and nobody is out there advocating for the money at the level that we need, that I'm hearing regularly. So we really need to demand that from our federal, our Congress people, our federal delegation. They should be looking at federal funds, which I know is volatile in this current administration. And from the state level, we need to be seeking more funds. So from a county level, like I said, I believe they're investing over $1 billion in this next budget towards upgrading our wastewater treatment plant in Hilo, and then dealing with some stuff over in Kealakehe and in Ka'u. But without innovative solutions for our more rural areas, I'm really not sure how we're going to address it. It's just on a case by case basis, and the solutions can't come fast enough at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Shannon, you brought up the marine environment and how that's impacted by how we treat our wastewater.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about or ask you about the aquarium trade. Do you support banning the aquarium trade industry? Would you work on legislation to mitigate the trade's impact here?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The county recently passed a resolution urging the state to act. So this is more in the state's jurisdiction, and the state, there's a couple bills going through the state right now, and I did testify in support of those. And at the same time, county sent a resolution. For those who aren't familiar with how this legislation works, the resolution, it doesn't change any county laws. It just upholds the values that community has. And community has said loudly and clearly over and over again that we want to see a ban on this for-profit harvesting of our aquatic resources in this manner. And so that's been upheld at the county level. They've urged the state to act, and hopefully they'll act this session. And I'm definitely in support of that.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Great. So this one's kind of under social issues. And will you vote to revoke any and all agreements between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security and ICE? And will you vote to forbid the signing of any collaborative agreements now and in the future?
So that's a complicated one. My heart and my mind immediately go, can I swear on here? They go F ICE, right? That's where I'm at, because I've seen so much coming out at the national level that is horrific. And I don't care if this loses me a vote or two. I am fully in support of immigrants' rights. And I believe Hawaii was built on immigrants. The continent was built on immigrants. That's how immigrants do the work. They show up. So the United States owes so much to immigrants, and pretty much everybody in the United States was or is an immigrant in some capacity. It's just ridiculous to me what we're doing to people. It's horrific. The stories that I'm hearing, it's concentration camp levels. So I'm not going to beat around the bush about that, but now I'm going to explain to you why it's complicated. And it's complicated because we don't have a lot of resources as a county government. So when we want to have an agreement, when HPD, when I say we, I mean the HPD, right? HPD wants to get the bad guys. And there's some bad guys, quote unquote, that I've told my kids these are people that, need some support and help. They are, they're definitely doing drugs. They're in a squatter house. We're hearing domestic violence regularly. They don't live there. They shouldn't live there. It's not their home. The homeowners passed away. We're trying to get these folks to move out of that house. Sometimes HPD needs additional resources, and sometimes they need additional resources because it's a really large issue and there's a lot of people there with a lot of weapons and a lot of drugs. Sometimes they need additional resources because it's a human trafficking situation, or it's a situation where it's going across state lines and maybe it's like a fraud situation, something that people are laundering money. There's, some illegal activity that's happening online. And they need to have these agreements with other states and with the federal entities. So sometimes they need FBI, sometimes they need DHS, sometimes they need these other resources to help them. So that's where some of those MOUs came from that we have at the county level. And the county has been working really hard. The county council hears the community's concerns about involvement with ICE, and they have been working to try to create MOUs that do not support ICE and them showing up in really, which is basically a civil matter. And that instead they focus on the criminal issues that are happening. If there's drugs, if there's human trafficking, if there's other issues that they need to deal with, that they deal with those to keep our community safe. And they're not just arresting people because they don't have their paperwork in order, or, they're brown skinned and they're here and they're maybe not able to speak English fully. So we're not trying to racial profile, and so far we've had a really good working relationship with HPD where they've made it clear that they're not going to be engaging in that kind of activity, and that they're going to continue to support our community's needs and desires, which are to keep us safe and to work with these more moneyed, more resourced entities, but they're not going to be targeting people who might not have all of their documentation in order.
Thank you. I think we have
Can I do
time for one or two more questions.
One or two. Okay. James, do you want to just, from the remaining questions that we have, just pick another one that you think would be good?
Yeah, I'll ask a question about culture and arts. Hawaii's arts and culture are central to our identity, economy, and sense of place. Yet funding and support for local artists, cultural practitioners, and heritage programs are often among the first to be cut. What specific steps will you take to ensure that arts and culture are prioritized and protected in our state budget? How will you support the preservation of Native Hawaiian cultural practices for future generations?
Thank you for that question. So you said state, and I am running for county. So there's not much in our county budget in the way of arts support, which is a big bummer because I love arts. I'm regularly, my children go and I've participated in, I think, 4 different groups. We have a lot of theater. We're so blessed in Hilo that we have so many different theater organizations. And at this point, they've gotten the privilege and the pleasure of, experiencing directors from 4 different huis of theater folks in Hilo. And the level of theater productions is just incredible. The amount of art we have in Hilo is wonderful. And we have some little pockets of art communities that are happening in various ways, but we don't have a lot of live theater in Puna. And I would love to figure out ways to support that more. Hilo is a relatively short drive away, but depending on traffic, it can be a big commitment for our family to go and be in a theater production at the Palace Theater. We're giving up huge amounts of time, just in traveling there alone, let alone all the commitment that community theater takes. So, more dance opportunities, more musical opportunities in Puna would be great. And of course, all the other mediums of art. I would love to find other ways to support that, not just through the schools. There really isn't much of a budget in the county. They're dealing with all sorts of other things, basic services that we need to, and so finding innovative ways to do that. All like I mentioned earlier, there are CRF funds, so that's contingency relief funds, and many of the council members use that. They get that budget every year. It depends on the budget, but it's been pretty steady for the last few years. And those are little micro grants that they can give to nonprofits within their district or anywhere on the island. It doesn't just have to be in their district. But I would focus some of those funds on supporting local artists in the Puna community, in which ways we can support the work they're already doing and encourage them to, try new innovative things that they might not otherwise do if they didn't have the funding for it. So I would love to, hold this office and be able to work with community and prioritize some of the art projects that, either are underfunded or could use some funding to get started and create some beautiful things for all of our community to enjoy, but definitely engaging with Keiki and Kapuna, because those are two groups that, could really find a lot of value in getting to experience more art locally in Puna and not have to commute to Hilo to get to experience some of that.
Thank you. I think we're running out of time here. How would you like to take a couple minutes and make a closing statement?
I didn't prepare one. I thought I was going to answer questions the whole time. Well, I appreciate you guys so much. I love what you're doing. I think that this is so important. I encourage anybody watching this, to get involved. Definitely check out the awesome work that HULI PAC is doing. Please check out my website. It's electshannonmatson.com. I need all the help I can get. This is a great big district, and I'm running for you. I'm running for our community, so I want to hear from you. Whatever way you can contact me, all my contact information's on the website. And I really just enjoy being in community and finding ways to, help connect people with resources. I think that's one of my biggest strengths is helping navigate systems. And I know HULI's goal is to HULI the system, but my goal is to find ways to work within the system, to connect people to resources, and then just to make all of it work better. And maybe then we don't have to flip it over entirely. Maybe there's still some good stuff that we can do within the system to get it to really work for us. And then ultimately, if it takes a full flip, then we'll Hulimaka flip. We'll flip it over. We'll do it again, and I'm here for all of it. So really grateful for this time. And yeah, really stoked to continue these conversations. Election for primary election isn't until August 8th. But if you are registered to vote, you'll get your mail out ballot a couple of weeks before that. Make sure you get it turned in on time on August 8th. And as always, electshannonmatson.com. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them for you. Mahalo nui.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Candidate for County Council District 5, which is
Upper Puna.
Upper Puna. And
Yep.
thank you to both our interviewers, Antu and James. And I would just like to follow up and say the most important thing that any Hawaii resident can do right now is to vote. So openly discuss the candidates and issues with your friends and family, but the most important thing is to get out there and vote. HULI PAC was born from a shared drive to rework our system by seeking indigenously progressive-minded, āina-based, equity-focused leadership for our Hawai'i Island community. That's a mouthful. Now more than ever, we need leaders who are willing to circle back to our roots and instill real change to regenerate and transform our Hawai'i Island community. For more information, check out our website, hulihigh.com. That's HULIHI.com. Have a great evening.
Aloha.
Thank you
Aloha.
all. Mahalo nui.
Thank you.
At HULI PAC, we envision a future in which our Hawai'i Island community is empowered to elect pono leaders, nurture our relationship with āina, and inspire environmental, social, and economic well-being.
Our mission is to endorse and support candidates and office holders of integrity who serve āina and the people of Hawai'i Island. We do this by interviewing, researching, and ultimately vetting candidates and incumbents who are running for local office.
All of our interviews are streamed live so that you have the power to make decisions off of substance rather than a familiar face or a name. We must move forward and encourage voting based on righteous qualifications and a backbone to stand up for what is pono.